everyone, and welcome. Welcome into the space. All right. I am Vanessa Lowe, your host for Financing Philadelphia's Future, and very excited today to be talking with Reverend Gregory Holston. He has been our guest before and is a friend of the coalition for sure. Um, let's do some of those sort of logistics. However, you're watching, we encourage you to put your name in the chat, join our listserv, and it's best to watch in the preview mode, watching the speaker mode. So let's jump right in. Once again, Vanessa Lowe, I'm the host of Vanessa's Money Hour on G-Town Radio, also a member of the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition. Our guest today, Reverend Holston, he's the executive director of Just Nation Incorporated, a racial justice organization dedicated to challenging structural racism in all its forms. You all have probably heard of Reverend Holston. He's had leadership positions across the policy and advocacy spaces, including serving as the executive director of several nonprofits. Since in 2020, he was appointed senior advisor on policy and advocacy for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office by Larry Krasner. In that role, he's helped to lead a coalition that secured $68 million in new city funding and $20 million for community organizations. This coalition evolved into the 57 Block Coalition, which is now over 70 organizations strong, dedicated to reducing gun violence through investments in Philadelphia's hardest hit neighborhoods. I'm not going to do too much more here because Reverend Holston will probably talk about some of this, but I just want to lift that up in particular because I know I have heard so much on the national news, on social media about the effectiveness of the campaigns that have really reduced violence in major cities, particularly the ones led by Black mayors, but also here in Philadelphia. So thank you for all your work, Reverend Holston, and I'll turn it over to you to say a few words.
Well, this quickly on that, we're thankful for all the gun violence prevention organizations, the leadership in this city over really the last 25, 30 years who have done incredible work. People like Dr. Dorothy Johnson Sprife of Mothers in Charge and Reverend Shantae Love Mason of Every Murder is Real and Reuben Jones of Frontline Dads and so many others who have been so consistent with the same message that if you invest in our community, that is the best solution to reduce gun violence. In 2018, 2019, briefly, before we get into Project Beloved Community, City of Philadelphia put about less than $1 million into gun violence prevention and gun violence prevention organizations. At that time, we were about 350, 360 homicides a year. That shot up to 563 during the pandemic. And then we made investments. We pushed for 100 million. And initially it was about 25 million from the city, another 25 from the state, philanthropy putting in the rest. And that's grown to about 30 million from the state and 30 million from the city, and philanthropy doing even more. And we reduced that gun violence from the high of all time, 563 homicides, down to last year to about 220 homicides, just about a 60% reduction in homicides, one of the lowest numbers in the last 60 years. At the same time, we had the same number of police, which shows you that if we invest in our community, invest in our people, that's the best way to reduce crime and violence in our cities. And if we do even more, which is going to be a part of what we're discussing here today, we do even more. We dare to believe that we could actually have zero homicides in this city for a whole year. It's possible if we really push it and push the kinds of investment in our young people that so often they simply don't get. And so from that point, I want to kind of jump back into this Project Beloved Community, which I really linked together with what I just talked about. Many of our coalition to defend democracy gathered together to push back against Project 2025, that incredible document from the right wing and Donald Trump that has cut many of our services, rolled back much of our diversity efforts, rolled back much of our efforts around Medicaid and taking care of our own people, and has caused devastating cuts in so many different areas to affect our city and affect our state and affect our government. The so-called big beautiful bill is not beautiful to anybody and has damaged us greatly. And as we've gone out to share this in churches and mosques across the city of Philadelphia, um, and we explained the devastation, 50,000 people losing their food stamps in Philadelphia over the next year or so, 125,000 losing their Medicaid over the next 2 to 3 years, 100,000 losing their ACA. These devastating numbers, people have responded to us over and over and said, all right, that's good you're telling us, but what's the plan? What are we going to do? What is our response? And so many groups are pushing back now. And so we know about those efforts to reverse all those things. But we don't know. We didn't really have a plan about how do we replace some of the pain caused by the big beautiful bill, and also how do we repair the long-term damage or the long-term structural racism that exists here in our city. And and through the last several months, we've gotten together, we've had major conversations, major work. Some of the great public bank folk here have been adding in so much, and we've come up with what we call Project Beloved Community, a response to Project 2025 and Trumpism, a Philadelphia response using Philadelphia resources. Because while we are the second poorest big city in the country, at the same time, we're about the ninth richest city at the same time. We don't have a wealth problem, we have a distribution problem. And if we can distribute the dollars a little bit more for everybody, we all can push back against Trump and build the city that we really want to have. A city that is truly lives up to its name of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And so I can talk a little bit more about it, but that's the concept of how we got here. And then we can go a little bit into those details. But we're going to have a teach-in on March 14th, Saturday, March 14th. We're going to have a teach-in to explain all of this in great detail at the Great Zion Baptist Church, 1:30 to 4:30, Saturday, March 14th, Zion Baptist Church, 3600 North Broad Street. Its great former pastor, the great Reverend Leon Sullivan, who always believed we needed to do for self and take care of our own people and use what we have. He would love this effort, I believe, in this day, in this time.
Wonderful. I'm very excited about it. It's in my calendar. And it's interesting because it sounds a little similar to Power just held a sort of a big meeting focused on housing. And it was jam-packed, lots of energy, lots of speakers, lots of people testifying about the need for changes to housing policy. And so it was really inspiring. So I'm expecting kind of the same thing. Talk us
Yeah.
through the day and what are the key pillars? It sounds like we're going to have some breakout groups. So what are the key pillars we're going to be talking about?
Thank you so much. Yes, it is lined up, and Power is one of the groups that is also helping us or working with us, as well as many of the unions are kind of coming along the same line of what do we do differently? How do we respond differently? And so one of the key structures around this is sort of much of what I just said in terms of number, what the problem is, and then to replace some of the damage that has been done. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is the city has a surplus of about $1.2 billion. We have 50,000 people because of that big ugly bill that will lose their food stamps, is estimated. $200 a month for each one of them can replace that money that is going to be taken from the federal government. 50,000 times $200 is $10 million. $10 million a month times 12, $120 million a year. For $120 million a year, we can make sure those 50,000 people who lose their food stamps here in the city of Philadelphia are replaced by our dollars from our city to make sure our people are going to be taken care of. And so that's just one of the ideas of if we're a project beloved community, how do we take care of our own? How do we make sure the people with in the deepest pain, from the deepest hurts from the Trump administration, we can do something about it? And as I said, $120 million, our surplus is $1.2 billion. For 1/10 of our surplus, we can take care of those 50,000 people and they won't be harmed by what Donald Trump and Trumpism is doing in DC. So that's just one of the ideas. But there's so many others. One of them is going to be obviously really clearly laying out why the public bank really makes a big difference here. Goals let along to deal with the 65,000 deeply affordable housing units needed in the city. And how can we really finance that in a way uh, and do it in a way using community trust and social housing and all these kinds of things? There are pillars of the plan to come together to be able to really address the deeply affordable housing unit need in the city. I mean, we've been gentrifying Philadelphia for the last 40 years. And now we're reaping the whirlwind of that gentrification, taking deeply affordable housing units off the market and being replaced by market value or even greater uh, over the last 40 years. It's been happening. We've seen whole neighborhoods. Society used to be black people used to live in society here. How do you know? Because Mother Bethel was still standing as testament that black folk used to live in society here. Northern Liberties, look at that area. Used to be all black in the 1980s and 1990s. And we've seen the same kind of gentrification happen in West Philly, happened in the bottom, happened in other parts of West Philly right now. How do we live together where we have enough deeply affordable housing units and we have enough market value housing units that we all can live together in one city? Well, we need to do the kinds of investments that's going to make that happen. And again, the tool of the public bank that now I'm getting even greater understanding of using that tool that actually banks actually create money, private banks create money for private people, public bank will create money for public people for public purposes to circulate those dollars back here into the city of Philadelphia to make sure we keep and build 65,000 deeply affordable housing units over the next 10 years. We can do it if we use all of our tools that benefit the people.
Great. I'm excited about that. I had asked about Kensington Corridor Trust is
Hmm.
doing some really interesting stuff, and I understand will they be speakers? Will they be guests? Because I would love for more people to know about that. Tell us a little bit.
Yes. Well, first we go take that first hour and a half and we break down the proposal to what the problem is, how we can address the problem through the 9 pillars, and then how we finance the whole thing. A lot of it using that public bank, but also pension investments and other tools and techniques. But then we break up into some important workshops. One will be directly on housing. Then we'll talk about that 65,000 housing units, and we'll have that do that for about an hour 15 minutes. And those great leaders around housing uh, uh, will will lift up those housing principles around to be able to do the 65,000 housing units. We'll have another workshop on the living wage. Uh, and how we can have the living wage here in the city of Philadelphia. The living wage in Philadelphia is just about $25 an hour for the individual. We have thousands of municipal workers who do not make that kind of wage. You can't push private industry to do what your own public industry doesn't do. And so we're going to push and talk a lot about how do we get another 23,000 families of 23,000 people affecting 57 to 100,000 people, uh, getting them the living wage if they're work for the city or they're contracted workers for the city or subcontracted workers for the city. How do we lift that wage up to $25 an hour? My time at Power, we went from 725 to 1088 to $12. When I was executive director, we moved it up to $15. Now it's 1625. But we need to go the rest of the distance and go $25 an hour so those people have a living wage. And so we're going to have a workshop around that, describing how to build upon that, how to use city resources to make that happen. That this surplus again is another tool for us to make all of that happen, along with all of the other tools we have. And then we're also going to talk about what I talked about earlier, gun violence, a real gun violence plan to take us to zero gun violence shootings in the city. How much investment do we really need to put into all of these organizations that are doing this great work? If 60 to $100 million has gotten us a 60% reduction, what will another $100 million do if we had that invested in our groups and in organizations? And so we're going to have another workshop that deals with that as well as a part of this, and then coming back all together to make sure people understand the goals of the plan. 40 to 50,000 living wage jobs, 65,000 deeply affordable housing units, $1 billion in Black wealth growth. That we understand these big goals over the next 10 years that can be done with the tools that we have.
So, and I saw this question, I'm going to ask it. The question in the chat was, what are the 9 pillars? Are the pillars the goals that we're trying to achieve or the tools we're using to achieve those goals? Tell us what
They're
those nine
they're
pillars are.
they're they're kind of mixed a little bit of both, but let's start with some of the basic tools. Obviously, the public bank is a basic tool that we have to have. Uh, we put together a structure where we did deeply affordable housing and we had a public bank, and we did a deeply affordable housing and we didn't have a public bank, how much more it would cost the city. And the numbers were astronomical. One of the things we'll point out that the public bank, along with some other tools, could do it almost for half the price if we're willing to put that tool in place. So public bank is one of the tools. Pension investments, using our pension funds who invest all over the world, as has been talked about on this program before, to make sure they invest back here in the city. About 5% of those investments can really turn a lot around in this city. And so we want to make sure our pension funds are being used properly. I mentioned social housing as housing owned by the people. I didn't mention cooperatives, but that is a part of this as well. Worker cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, housing cooperatives, solar cooperatives. It is something powerful when you democratize the economy. It actually spreads the wealth out more, but it actually is cheaper to do in terms of expenses because we're not extracting out, we're recycling the dollars back and forth. It's touching the hands of people. One of the stats that always stood with me for the Black community is that actually in segregation, because we were forced to, we only could be able to buy and sell with each other, that the dollar could circulate, and would circulate over like 10 times. Um, but now, because we don't have the same kind of infrastructure like that, the black dollar only circulates 1/10 of one time. Every time it circulates, it creates more jobs for the group that's circulating the dollars. And so you see much of the wealth of the Black community continues to go to other places. Much of the wealth of Philadelphia goes to other places as well. When we have a public bank in these 9 pillars of public bank, pension investment, cooperatives, solar, social housing, living wages for all people, when we put all this together, we begin to put the infrastructure together where those dollars circulate more and we create as we want to do 40 to 50,000 new living wage jobs here in the city of Philadelphia.
Take us back to sort of how we came to this. What's the background that got us to this?
Yeah, this is really a cry from the people. When we were just trying to go out to explain to people what's happening with Trump and what are the dangers here. We tried to explain Project 2025 before the election, and then we just tried to explain the big, beautiful bill afterwards. We encouraged people to call their congressmen and get involved. But when those efforts, well, didn't fail because some ways we pushed back and won some things, but much of that bill got through anyway. People said, all right, what we're going to do? What's the plan? And after we heard it several times, we began to think, hey, look, we have to develop a plan that is not dependent on the federal government. We have to develop a plan that's not dependent even on the state government. Those entities are controlled right now by right-wing forces, white Christian nationalism, people that hate black people and want to eliminate black folk. And since they're under that kind of auspice right now, and we can look around Philadelphia and see black people in leadership throughout the city. It is time that we all come together and use every lever, every resource possible to make sure that we take care of our community here in Philadelphia to push back against this onslaught that's happening at the federal level. Does it mean we're not fighting what's happening in the federal? No, no. We're going to vote. We're going to get out and vote. We're going to make sure we vote this time around. And I hope some folk who didn't vote last time will now see that their vote really means something. But in the meanwhile, we need to be able to help our own people. And it was their cry. It was black folk in churches across this city who said they wanted a plan. Something we need to do. I went to some of our politicians about this, and they said, well, we could never put the resources that's being taken from us back into the city. And I challenged them. I said, well, have you tried? Have you thought about it? Have you tried to figure out what we could do? I know one of the first things I learned growing up from my parents is when trouble comes, we need to sit down at the dinner table and see what we have. And we may have more than we think we have. You know, I laugh, and my wife, I've been married for be 40 years this year. And I used to give her $2 when we first got married and say, make dinner. She did that. She took that $2, got a little piece of hamburger, some macaroni, and had some of the best meals on that $2. She looked around and saw what she had in the kitchen and mixed it all together. And we lived great with $2. So I'm saying in the same process in the city here, we don't need to just assume that we can help our people. We got more than what we think we have. We have more resources than we think we have. We have more power than we think we have. And we have to stand up and come together to make sure everyone has enough to be able to survive in the city. This it's not by chance that we have the largest surplus in the history of the city right now. I see. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. I mean, God has provided for us the greatest surplus we've ever had in the history of this city. And it is now time to use it for those who are the deepest in poverty, the deepest in pain. And when we do that, actually, we all benefit. We all prosper because the more the dollars circulate, what do poor folk do with dollars? When they get it, because they got to take care of their needs, they go spend it. And that circulates in those businesses, in those communities. They get stronger, they get more powerful, and it circulates and everybody does better. So this is not a program just to help poor folk. It has helped to build all of Philadelphia, particularly during this time of Trumpism, but also give us some long-term solutions to deal with the structural racism that has been a part of this city for a very, very long time.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about it even more now. Will we have any of our representatives at this meeting? Do we know?
As of this time, I know Council Member Nick O'Rourke will be present, and because we've had to change it a couple of times, Councilwoman Brooks can't make it this time around, but she definitely so much is very supportive in the ideas we're talking about. And we expect other council people and leaders to be there. We will be talking to them in the next several weeks for them to come and learn, not to be put on the spot, not to not even to be asking questions of them. Come and learn and let us share together. Let us talk together. Let's really build a plan together. Uh, this is not going to be a thing we're going to point at them. You should do this. You should do that. That might come at another time. But right now, it is exactly what it says it is, a teach in. We're going to teach a little bit about these kind of policies and how they can work to benefit everyone.
All right. Looking forward to this. All right. We got 4 minutes. Let me go to Peter and see, do we have any questions from the chat?
I, I don't see much in the chat, but I do have a question, Reverend Holston. How does the housing program for the beloved community integrate or work together with the mayor's HOME, Home Opportunities Made Easy program?
That's a good piece. And actually, I'm encouraged by some of the things that I'm hearing now inside of her home plan. One of those things is that she recently worked with the building trades to finance a senior home in West Philadelphia using pension dollars. The building trades submitted 50 million of their pension dollars as an investment in that senior home to turn that senior home around. I sent a note with joy to Ryan Boyer for his decision to use those pension dollars in that way, and excited about that possibility that they're keying into an idea that many of us here have been talking about for a long, long time, and that unions all across the city or country have been using for a long, long time. You know, what about 40,000 units in New York City, or excuse me, 80,000 units built in New York City over the last 40 years using pension dollars. I'm excited about some of this overlap that I'm hearing. The idea of the modular unit factory that the mayor wants to be able to build. Yes, that's a great idea. Modular units can be a tool to be able to build the deeply affordable housing units we need in a cheaper fashion, cheaper cost, I should say. And so there is some overlap as we're trying to get inventive. But I think the more we share and the more we talk, the more there can be exchange of ideas, and what works for the home plan can also do some great things for what we're talking about. But I think the really most powerful thing we're trying to say is deeply affordable housing units. Deeply. That's where the need is. The home program does a lot of good stuff, but it doesn't focus on the deeply affordable housing, the 30% AMI and under, the 35,000 and under. That's where the focus has to be, and that's where we're going to be pushing.
Yeah, and then I want to do a shout out to Women's Community Revitalization Project that has been doing that deeply affordable housing development for more than 30 years now. And so, yeah, we need many, many more of those. We only have about a minute or so, so I want to, if somebody could put the link to register or to learn more about the event into the chat. Let's show that. And then we're going to turn the recording off, but we'll continue having the conversation. Thank you so much, Reverend Holston, for being our guest today, and stay with us as we transition.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the continued great work of the Public Bank Coalition and this incredible idea. Again, I'm still learning. I'm still learning from you guys, and greatly appreciate all the things you're doing.
Join us next month for our next show.